I was halfway through rebuilding our manufacturing traceability system, something the auditors had been breathing down our necks about for months, when Richard Stone, the CEO of Stone Tech Industries, walked into my office without knocking. He didn't sit. He didn't greet me. He didn't even look at me. He just stood there scrolling on his phone and said, flat, emotionless, "Clear your office. My son needs it." Just like that. No explanation, no warning, no thank you for the 8 years I'd spent rescuing his failing software infrastructure. Just those words and the unspoken message behind them. You are replaceable. I remember blinking once, twice, as if maybe I misheard. But he just kept texting, waiting. So I said the only thing I could say without handing him my dignity: "Sure." He nodded like I'd just agreed to fetch him coffee and walked out, already onto whatever message was glowing on his screen. My name is Eva Monroe, and at that moment I realized something I should have seen years earlier. In Richard's eyes, experience meant nothing. Loyalty meant nothing. Results meant nothing. The only currency that mattered was bloodline. When I first joined Stone Tech, the system was chaos. Purchase orders missing. Supplier records outdated by years. Compliance forms scattered across email threads like confetti after a parade. If a federal audit had struck then, we would have been fined into bankruptcy. I rebuilt everything. Slowly, methodically, late nights, weekends, holidays. In the military, back before life became cubicles and boardrooms, we had a saying: amateurs rely on luck. Professionals build systems. And I built Stone Tech, a system so smooth the executives forgot it ever needed maintenance. That was my mistake. When things run flawlessly, people assume it's easy. I packed slowly. Not because I was emotional, though there was an ache, but because every object in that room had history. The whiteboard covered in diagrams no one else understood. The second monitor calibrated perfectly for vendor dashboards. The encrypted flash drive with every system automation I'd built. My notebook filled with codes, vendor contacts, audit exceptions. 8 years of institutional memory in ink. I placed only 3 things in my bag. My notebook. The flash drive. The framed photo of my dad and me on graduation day. His hand on my shoulder. His proud smile saying more than words ever could. Everything else? I left it for the prince who would inherit my kingdom. Before I walked out, I typed one short message to HR. Working from home until office reassignment is complete. Reach me by email. No drama, no hint of what was really happening. Just silence. Sometimes silence is the loudest response. Monday morning at 8:07 a.m., while I sipped coffee in sweatpants at my kitchen table, a LinkedIn post appeared. Selfie ring light glaring. Perfectly groomed hair, designer watch. Caption: first day stepping into leadership at Stone Tech. Time to modernize outdated systems. Next generation, leadership goals. That was Ryan Stone, the CEO's 27-year-old son. Fresh MBA, 0 industry experience, just confidence and followers. I laughed, not because it was funny, but because arrogance always looks ridiculous before reality hits. The first sign of trouble came faster than I expected. 9:42 a.m. My inbox pinged. Message from Ryan. "Hey Eva, where's the automated compliance report? Didn't run this morning." Automated? He really believed everything maintained itself. I didn't reply. At 10:15, another email, this time CCing half of leadership, then another, then finally one from Richard. "Please forward necessary files to Ryan and support the transition." Transition. That word was doing a lot of heavy lifting. I only responded with, "All operational documentation is maintained in my private records. Available upon formal contract agreement." Send. By Wednesday, the silence from my side wasn't silence anymore. It was pressure. Suppliers started asking questions Ryan couldn't answer. A regulatory notice arrived requiring immediate data submission. Data only I knew how to retrieve. And then the payment system glitched. Because every month it needed manual reconciliation before it could authorize new invoices. Nobody knew that. So vendors didn't get paid. And when vendors don't get paid, vendors stop shipping. Friday morning, 7:56 a.m., my phone buzzed. Richard. No greeting, no small talk. Just panic disguised as control. Ava, there seems to be a misunderstanding. We need you on site temporarily. I sipped my coffee slowly. There's no misunderstanding, I said. You made your decision. A long silence. Ava, be reasonable. I smiled, not cruelly, just knowingly. I was reasonable for 8 years. Now I'm unavailable. Click. And that was the moment Richard Stone finally learned the lesson every arrogant leader eventually faces. You can replace a title. You cannot replace a backbone of a company. And I was gone. For good. The following week felt strangely peaceful. While Stone Tech scrambled internally, I woke up each morning without alarm clocks, without office politics, without the constant expectation that I would fix messes made by people who barely understood the systems keeping their business alive. My work laptop, still connected to their systems, sat powered off on my dining table. I didn't touch it, not because I was avoiding responsibility, but because the responsibility was no longer mine. I had fulfilled my duty. They had dismissed me. And now they were learning what that meant. By Tuesday, cracks in Stone Tech's operations were beginning to show. Quiet at first, like hairline fractures in glass. A message from Tina, the logistics coordinator, hit my personal email. Eva, can I ask you something privately? None of Ryan's changes make sense, and he keeps saying things like streamline, but orders are already stuck. Do you know what's going on? I read it twice. Tina wasn't dramatic, wasn't one to panic. If she was contacting me off record, things were worse than I thought. I typed back carefully. I'm no longer responsible for those decisions. Speak to management. Protect yourself. She replied with only 2 words. I'm scared. And I knew exactly why. At Stone Tech, fear never came suddenly. It crept in slowly, disguised as restructuring. Wednesday morning, another ping. LinkedIn again. Ryan posted a screenshot of some dashboard with charts and financial metrics. Caption, making tough changes and driving necessary improvements. Leadership means big decisions. Disruption. Future of manufacturing comments poured in from his MBA classmates. Love the energy. Take that company to the next level. Legacy leadership fears change. Push forward. If only they knew. Sudden, uninformed change isn't innovation. It's demolition. I didn't have to wait long for confirmation. At 11:22 a.m., my phone rang. Unknown number. I normally never answer those, but instinct told me this wasn't a telemarketer. Ava speaking. A nervous voice. Hi, this is Mark from Compliance Tech Consulting. Stone Tech referred us to you. My eyebrows lifted. Referred? I repeated. Yes. Apparently you built most of their reporting automations, and no one here can find the original documentation. We're trying to run their quarterly compliance submission, and nothing is syncing. The state deadline is Friday. A quiet satisfaction settled in my chest. Not gloating, not triumph. Just validation. I kept my tone professional. I don't consult without a formal contract. Oh, of course, he stammered. Could you send rates? No, I said simply. Stone Tech already has them. He hesitated. Then quietly, they can't afford them. That sentence stayed with me long after the call ended. It wasn't about money. It was about ego. Richard didn't want to admit his mistake. Not to the board, not to his son, and definitely not to me. So instead, he was willing to watch his company bleed. Thursday morning brought another shift. A message from Jim, one of our biggest vendors. Ava, hope you're well. Just checking. Who should we coordinate with now? Ryan approved 2 invoices wrong, and we're freezing shipments until someone competent verifies. Vendors. Freezing shipments. That was serious. Without materials, Stone Tech production stops. If production stops, contracts default. If contracts default, clients pull away. The kind of spiral a company doesn't always recover from. I typed back, I no longer represent StoneTech. Please direct all communication to their management. Seconds later, he responded, Shame. You kept things running better than anyone. If you ever consult, call me. I stared at that message longer than I expected. Something in me shifted. Not anger, not revenge. Opportunity. By Friday, the frantic calls had become predictable. First Richard. Ignored. Then Ryan. Ignored. Then HR. Ignored. They weren't calling because they respected my expertise. They were calling because they finally realized they never understood the machine I built. That afternoon, as I folded laundry, my phone buzzed again. This time, a text. From Richard. Ava, we need you back temporarily. Full pay reinstated. Office can be reassigned. Please call. It was the closest thing to an apology I would ever get from him. But it wasn't enough. Not anymore. I typed slowly, deliberately. I'm unavailable. Please stop contacting me unless it is through legal or contracts. No anger. No emotion. Just finality. I hit send. That night, sitting by my window with a glass of red wine, I watched the city lights shimmer. Cars moving, people rushing, businesses alive and oblivious. StoneTech was no longer part of my world, and for the first time in years, that thought didn't scare me. It thrilled me. Some endings aren't losses. Some endings are open doors disguised as slammed ones. And the door behind me? Locked. Permanently. Because now, finally, I had room to build something of my own. The third week after I walked out of StoneTech didn't feel like freedom. It felt like adjustment. My mornings were quiet. No rushing. No scrambling through traffic. No mentally preparing to justify decisions to people who didn't understand systems, processes, or consequences. Still, every time my phone buzzed, a small part of me expected another crisis call from StoneTech. Old habits die slowly, but I didn't owe them reactions anymore. Not my time, not my expertise, not my emotional energy. They had made the choice. Now they were living with it. On Monday afternoon, I met with my accountant, a calm woman named Helena, who spoke with the confidence of someone who had seen enough people wait too long to bet on themselves. So, she said, flipping through paperwork, you've had 3 separate companies reach out wanting consulting support? Yes. And StoneTech? They want help, I said, but they don't want accountability. Her smile was small but knowing. That's the moment most careers pivot. Not when someone sees your worth, but when someone refuses to and you decide to stop shrinking. The words hit harder than I expected, because she was right. Leaving StoneTech wasn't the betrayal. Staying would have been. By Wednesday, I had signed my first official consulting contract with North River Engineering, a mid-sized manufacturer struggling with supply chain forecasting. They paid my full rate without negotiation, not because they couldn't, but because they respected expertise. After years of being treated like a replaceable cog, that respect felt almost strange. But it also felt right. More inquiries followed, mostly smaller companies, mostly referrals. People talk in this industry, quietly but consistently. And the message spreading now wasn't, Ava left. It was, Ava was the reason StoneTech worked. Meanwhile, StoneTech was unraveling faster than anyone predicted. Tina emailed again, short and cautious. 2 more suppliers froze shipments. We're running out of stock. Leadership is blaming transitional turbulence. Everyone knows that's not true. It hurt reading that. Not because StoneTech deserved help, but because the people still inside didn't deserve the fallout. Especially Tina. She'd been loyal, hardworking, overlooked, just like I had been. I typed a reply, hesitated, then erased it. Trying to save her wasn't my job anymore. Instead, I sent, keep copies of everything. Protect yourself. Don't volunteer to fix what leadership broke. She responded with a single line. Thank you. Not for advice, for acknowledgement. Sometimes acknowledgement is the only kindness available. Thursday morning brought a new surprise. Someone knocked on my door. When I opened it, Ryan stood on my porch. No ring light, no perfect posture, no forced confidence, just exhaustion and fear. "Ava," he said quietly, "can we talk?" For a moment, old reflex, the one that fixes everything, almost answered. But then memory stepped in. His picture-perfect announcement. His comments about modernizing outdated systems. His father dismissing me mid-task. So I stepped outside but didn't invite him in. "What do you need?" I asked. He swallowed. "We can't run the quarterly reports. Vendors won't work with us. Dad is blaming everyone. The board wants documentation I can't find because..." He hesitated. "Because I didn't know what you did. I didn't know how much of this wasn't automated." There it was. The truth finally spoken. Not out of respect. Out of consequence. I didn't soften. I didn't rescue. I just nodded. "And what exactly are you asking, Ryan?" His voice cracked a little. "Can you come back? Just temporarily? I'll give you the office back. I'll tell my dad he was wrong. Whatever it takes." For years, I would have said yes. But growth doesn't happen in comfort. It happens in separation. So I answered calmly, "No." His eyes widened. "Just like that?" "Yes," I said. "Just like that. But we need you." "I know," I replied. "But need isn't respect. Need isn't value. And need doesn't erase how I was treated." He exhaled shakily. "So that's it? You won't help? Not at all?" I held his gaze. "If I help you now, you won't learn. And neither will your father." The silence that followed wasn't hostile. It was realization. Finally, he nodded. Not with agreement, but acceptance. "I'm sorry," he said, barely audible. I didn't respond. He walked back to his car, shoulders heavy, and drove away. That night, as I sat reviewing contracts for new clients, a quiet truth settled inside me. For years, I'd believed survival meant endurance. But leaving Stone Tech taught me something sharper, something stronger. Sometimes the most powerful move isn't fighting back. It's walking away and watching what falls without you. And Stone Tech was finally learning what I already knew. A company can replace a desk, but it cannot replace the person who kept the lights on. By the start of the next month, my consulting work had grown from an idea into something solid, structured, real, sustainable. I had 3 contracts running simultaneously, and all 3 companies treated me with more professionalism than Stone Tech had in 8 years. I worked from a small rented office downtown, nothing glamorous. White walls, a sturdy desk, 2 monitors, and plants I was determined not to kill. But it was mine. That mattered more than luxury ever could. Meanwhile, Stone Tech was making headlines, not the kind companies want. A trade publication released a short article. Stone Tech facing delays, vendor disruptions after leadership changes. The piece didn't mention my name, but it didn't need to. People inside the industry knew exactly what had changed and who had left. On Wednesday morning, while reviewing forecast data for North River Engineering, my phone buzzed again. This time it wasn't Richard, Ryan, or HR. It was someone I never expected, the chairman of Stone Tech's board, Eleanor West. Her message was polite, concise, and impossible to ignore. "Ava, I believe we need to talk. Are you available for a meeting this week?" Eleanor wasn't emotional, impulsive, or arrogant. She was strategic. And when a strategic person reached out, it meant something bigger was moving. I responded with equal professionalism. "Available Friday. Send meeting details to my business address." For the first time, they weren't contacting employee Eva. They were contacting consultant Eva. That shift mattered. Friday arrived with gray clouds and the kind of cold that made the city feel metallic and distant. Eleanor didn't come through email or video call. She arrived in person. She sat across from me in my small office wearing a charcoal blazer and an expression that was both apologetic and analytical. "Ava," she began, folding her hands. "Before anything else, what happened to you was mishandled." I waited. She continued, "We've lost 4 major clients in 6 weeks. Our suppliers don't trust leadership. Our compliance reports are overdue, and our internal system is unstable." There it was. The blunt truth no one else at Stone Tech could say aloud. Then she inhaled slowly. "We need help. Not from a junior analyst. Not from someone learning on the job. From the person who built the infrastructure." I stayed silent because sometimes silence gives people space to reveal more. Eleanor leaned forward. "I'm prepared to offer a consulting contract. Independent. Full control of system recovery strategy. Board-level reporting. 6-month minimum." Her tone remained steady until the final sentence. "And I will personally ensure Richard and his son have no involvement with you." That part wasn't business. It was acknowledgement. I could have said yes immediately. But wanting something and needing something are not the same. So I asked the only question that mattered. "Why now?" She didn't hesitate. "Because pain teaches faster than pride listens." I let the words settle. Then I asked another. "What happens when I fix the mess? When operations run smoothly again? When the pressure lifts?" She understood what I was really asking. Will I be dismissed again once I'm useful? Her answer was simple. "Then you decide whether you stay, not us." And for the first time since leaving Stone Tech, something unexpected surfaced. Respect. I reviewed the contract over the weekend. Not emotionally, not reactively, but strategically. It wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about boundaries. My father once told me, "Never return to a place broken if you must return as the same version of yourself." I wasn't returning as an employee desperate for approval. If I returned, it would be as someone with control, voice, autonomy, and the power to walk away again. Monday morning, I signed the contract, but before sending it, I added a sentence at the bottom. Non-negotiable. All communication with the CEO or his son will be routed through the board or legal. No direct contact. Then I pressed send. The board's response was immediate and professional. Richard's response, though not sent to me, arrived indirectly through someone still inside. Tina emailed, "He's furious. Ryan too. But the board shut them down." Hard. People are actually relieved. Relieved. That word stopped me. Not happy, not excited, not celebrating. Relieved. Because chaos had become the norm since I left. And stability wasn't just needed. It was overdue. That evening, I closed my office laptop and sat quietly, letting the weight of the decision settle. Not as regret, but as clarity. I wasn't going back to fix Stone Tech. I was going back to rebuild control over my own legacy. Some people think revenge is loud, but the truth is, real revenge is walking back through the same doors they pushed you out of. Not because you need them, but because now they need you. And this time, I wasn't returning to belong. I was returning on my terms. I walked back into Stone Tech 8 weeks after being told to clear my office. But this time, there was no hesitation in my steps. No lingering loyalty tugging at my chest. No desire to belong. I wasn't returning as staff. I wasn't returning as backup. I was returning as the person they now had to answer to. When I entered the lobby, a couple of employees looked up. Their expressions told a full story without a word spoken. Relief, recognition, and something else. Justice. Not the dramatic movie kind. The quiet, earned kind. The kind that comes when the tables finally balance. I met the board in the same conference room where Richard once dismissed me in front of executives, brushing off my warnings about system vulnerabilities like I was a nuisance rather than the person holding the company together. Now, the room felt different. Not because the walls or furniture changed, but because my position in it had. Eleanor greeted me first. "Ava," she said, extending her hand. "Glad you're here." No forced smile, no condescension, just professionalism. I nodded and took a seat. Richard was already there, stiff, jaw tight, eyes locked on the papers in front of him instead of me. Ryan sat beside him, arms folded, pretending confidence but failing to hide the weight of consequences. It struck me then, not with satisfaction, but with clarity. They weren't villains, just people who believed competence was replaceable. People who mistook familiarity for lack of value. People who assumed the machine would keep running because they never learned who built it. Eleanor opened the meeting. We're here to establish a recovery plan. Eva has full authority over operational restructuring. Any objections? Silence. Not because they agreed, but because they no longer had the power to disagree. Work began immediately. The first week was assessment, digging through broken processes, mismatched data, unpaid vendor files, and outdated reporting queues. I discovered shortcuts Ryan had attempted, deleted approval routes, simplified workflows that removed safeguards, and automation scripts run without pre-processing, like trying to fly a plane by removing half the controls to make it more modern. On Thursday afternoon, I sat across from Ryan and asked one simple question. Why did you change the payment sequence? His answer wasn't defensive or calculated, it was honest. I wanted to prove I could do something meaningful. I thought simplifying things was progress. I studied him. You can't change systems you don't understand, I said, not harshly, but firmly. Efficiency isn't less steps. It's the right steps. He nodded slowly, absorbing a lesson that should have been taught long before he inherited a position he wasn't ready for. That was the first time I saw something in him that wasn't arrogance. Humility. Maybe late, but real. By week 4, shipments were flowing again. Vendors unfroze accounts. Compliance reports were not only filed, they were correct. Systems synced. Audit risk dropped. Inside the company, the atmosphere shifted. Not back to how it was. Better. People asked questions. They documented procedures. They took ownership. They respected the process, not just the outcome. Sometimes pain doesn't destroy. It restructures. When the 6-month contract ended, I was invited to one final board meeting, not to troubleshoot, but to finalize next steps. Eleanor spoke first. Eva, we'd like to offer you a permanent executive position. Full operational oversight. Richard stared at the table, silent. Ryan's expression was unreadable. I let the offer hang for a moment. Not dramatically, just thoughtfully. Then I exhaled slowly. I appreciate it, truly. But I didn't rebuild this company to return to the role I outgrew. StoneTech needs structure. And now it has one. I built a consulting firm because I finally understood my value. And I'm not going backward. Eleanor nodded, not disappointed, but respectful. Then what do you want? She asked. I smiled. A long-term consulting retainer, renewable annually, advisory, not operational, and full autonomy. She extended her hand again. Done. After the meeting, as I walked toward the exit, someone called my name. It was Ryan. He didn't approach immediately. Instead, he spoke from a few feet away, like he understood boundaries now. Eva, thank you. Not just for fixing things, for not letting me ruin the whole company. I nodded once. Learn from it, I said. Mistakes aren't permanent failures unless you repeat them. He gave a small, genuine smile. I will. And for the first time, I believed him. When I stepped outside, the air felt different. Lighter, cleaner. Not because StoneTech had changed, but because I had. Leaving wasn't the end. Returning wasn't revenge. Success wasn't validation. The real victory was recognizing my worth before anyone else did. Because sometimes life doesn't give you applause, closure, or apologies. Sometimes it gives you something better. A second chance. On your terms.